We're going to take a look at some of these incredibly underutilized cards on today's episode of Overlooked and Underplayed. So be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Alinaldo Dumas, and let's get into it. So let's start things off with Static Snare. Ironically, the same name I give myself when I pinch a nerve in my groin. For 4 and a white, we get an enchantment with Flash, and it costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. When it enters, exile target artifact or creature until Static Snare leaves. Instant speed, potentially 1 white, exile. Again, you could throw this along with your Swords to Plowshares and your Path to Exiles if you're in a creature-heavy deck, or you tend to verse a lot of creature-heavy decks. Something to keep in mind, this counts the amount of creatures attacking, not just your creatures are attacking, not just your creatures attacking or an opponent's creatures attacking. This can be used offensively, defensively, and it's also an enchantment. So if you're in an enchantment deck like Onyxia, where you're running all of the enchantresses to draw cards, using Onyxia to reanimate enchantments out of your graveyards as 3/3s, Static Snare is fantastic because it'll just be 1-drop removal that can come back or remove again as a 3/3. Take your hands off the keyboard, all right? Because I already know you're typing, so we're just putting brand new cards on Overlooked and Underplayed list now and saying that they're overlooked and underplayed. Yeah. Yeah. No. Up next is Aphetto Runecaster, submitted over on Patreon from G. Manaldo. If you'd like to submit your own cards for these obscure lists that we do on the channel, consider becoming a Patreon or channel member. Starts as low as $1. Aphetto Runecaster is 3 and a blue for a 2/3 wizard. Whenever a card's turned face up, you draw a card. Now, this is actually really good nowadays. I could see how this got overlooked over the years passing by, because for a lot of years, it was just like Morph and then like Megamorph, which is really just Morph with like a sequel name stapled onto the front of it to get us hype. But we've got a lot more of these now. On top of those, we've got Manifest, Disguise, Cloak, Manifest Dread. We've got like at least 6 different ways to flip creatures now whenever we want. I'm sure there's a couple more that I'm missing now. So you're running a Trotta, Deadly Fugitive, you're cloaking stuff all day, throw this in there. You're playing Kadena, Slinking Sorceress, where you get to play all your face down stuff for free. I really don't have to mention that one. That's incredible in there. Jeez. Even Zamone, Mystery Unraveler, like a cool Simic build where you're manifesting Dread. This would go hard. And Manaldo coming in with an absolute home run. Appreciate you. So our black card today, again, comes from Patreon, from Lore, and he suggests Illicit Masquerade. It's 2 and 2 black for an enchantment. It has Flash. When it enters, you put an imposter counter on every creature you control. Whenever a creature you control with an imposter counter on it dies, exile it and return a creature from your graveyard into play. Lore. You're making my shorts tighten up, Lore. Oh, this is going in like all my decks. All of them. 1, this doesn't say non-token. So yeah, all your tokens will all just crack to bring back something from grave. So yeah, in my Taval Reanimator self-mill list, where I am literally just milling myself, creating tons of 2/2 zombies, this is incredible. This is insane that this is in under 10k decks. Pick one up. And if you see Lore out in public, give him a hug for me. You know what? No consent, give him the hug. So let's talk about our red card today. We've got Mercadian Downfall. For 2 and a red at instant speed, attacking creatures get +1/+0 for each non-basic land the defending player controls. Now, obviously, if you're in like a Krenko deck, this is pretty good. You can just swing out with your goblins at like any of the multicolor decks at the table and pretty much guarantee get like a 3/4/5/0 buff or more for 3 mana, which is insanely powerful at instant speed. But more so than that, I really like this in a goad deck where you're running stuff like Disrupt Decorum, because you can just wait for someone to swing at someone else with the most non-basic lands, drop this because it gives 1/0 to all attacking creatures, not just your attacking creatures. Political, good for aggro decks, good in goad. Instant speed buff, always good to sneak in some wins. I actually really like this. And when I play this, I've got one question for my opponents. How are those Ping, Fast, and Urza's lands treating you, douchebag? Because I played this for 3 mountains. All right, moving on. You guys know Telepathy, right? 1 blue, enchantment, makes everybody play with their hands revealed, ran in over 20,000 decks on EDH Rec. You guys like it a decent amount, I would say. It's fairly popular. Let me introduce you to Revelations. I don't even have to read it. It's just 1 green for the same thing Telepathy does. 1 green, everyone plays with their hands revealed. I think that could be used pretty efficiently. Throw this and Telepathy in your like Serdan Shipwright deck, so you can like see everyone's hands and know when you should be attacking to get that to trigger. Plus, you can make more political deals now, because you can be like, hey, I'll swing with Serdan only if you promise you play that thing out of your hand. Or just like a Glunch deck, like the Any Austin Glunch deck I made. I actually could see this going in there just because it's funny and just because it feels like a Glunch kind of fair thing to do, to be like, no, you actually have 3 ways to draw cards in your hand, so I'm gonna give the draw to him. You have ways to buff, so I'm actually gonna give the buffs to him. You don't have any mana ramp, so I'm gonna give you the treasures. I feel like that's a really good use for this card as well. Just a cool card. Revelations is a cool name, really cool art, awesome ability. I thought it was weird that Telepathy had over 20,000 decks and this one has way under 10,000 decks. I get that it's in green. I still think this is very good and can be utilized. Next card. Okay, so our multicolor card of the day is Barrin's Spite, and I actually might run this into Vol. I actually really like this. For 2 a blue and a black, we get a sorcery. You choose 2 target creatures controlled by the same player. That player sacks the first one and bounces the second one. Pretty good removal. 4 mana to get 2 pieces of removal. Not bad. The bounce can also be used politically. You could kill one thing that's a threat, but be like, hey, I have to remove that, it's a threat. This does have a built-in bounce though, so I can bounce your ETB thing. Just, you know what I mean? You can kind of soften blows a little bit with this card, which I like a lot. You can also use it on yourself. If you're in an aristocrat deck that happens to have ETBs like Grave Titan and death triggers that you're trying to get triggers off of like Blood Artist with, this is pretty good because you can bounce your own thing with an ETB and then sack your other thing that has a death trigger. It's very versatile on top of just using it as straight removal. I actually kind of like this in my cousin's Brea deck because it's literally just like a bounce toolbox deck, and this seems like a great piece of removal to use on other people. I could totally see him using it on himself to like sack one Thopter and bounce Brea back to his hand to replay Brea to get all these triggers to do a bunch of damage, create a bunch of treasure tokens. You know how that bullshit artifact deck goes. And finally, our colorless card of the day comes again from Patreon from Daniel Kozik, who suggests Bottled Cloister. For 4 mana, we get an artifact. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, we exile our hand. At the beginning of our upkeep, we return all cards exiled with Bottled Cloister to our hand and draw an additional card. Now, I'm gonna be honest, when I first read this, and still not great in a lot of decks because people could just kill it and shut down your whole deck, but Daniel, he's a big brain guy. He's willing to think a little bit deeper on this type of stuff. He brought up the fact you could use this in a Hellbent deck and keep your hands empty during all the opponent's turns, which actually can be really useful. You could get a bigger buff for your creatures with stuff like Nihilistic Glee during opponent's turns, deal more damage with a card like Twin Strike on opponent's turns. I think you actually could do some pretty decent stuff with this that's interesting. Not to even mention a deck where it's built around giving opponents bad shit. You could just give one opponent Bottled Cloister, and then if you have a way to switch it to the next opponent and then the next opponent, you can have everyone ditch their hands. That could be really annoying. So if you're in like a Blim Comedic Genius deck, I think this is also really, really good. Not to even mention if you're building like some kind of weird Blim Comedic Genius Theft Hellbent shit. All right. Well, there's probably going to be a Blim Comedic Genius Hellbent Gift Bad Shit deck on the channel soon. So get ready for that. I actually like this thing a lot, Daniel. So I appreciate you submitting it. So that sums up today's Overlooked and Underplayed. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like, subscribe, share, comment, do all that stuff. If you'd like to submit some of your own cards for these lists that we do on the channel, consider becoming a Patreon or YouTube member. It starts as low as $1, where you can submit your favorite obscure cards for these lists. And you can also submit your deck list for Friday night deck reviews over on the live stream. If any of that sounds interesting to you, check it out. Huge shout out to all the patrons that you can see on screen right now. The channel would not be where it's at without you guys. So I really do appreciate that a lot. With that though, go check out some of my other videos. I'm gonna get out of your hair. I'll see you guys next time.